Hello there, this is Elaine. I'm going to show you the Hello World program in C, and I'm using the Ubuntu environment. It covers beginner C and beginner Unix and Linux commands. It works on Unix, Linux, Mac and the Raspberry Pi as long as there's a C compiler installed. Also works on Windows if you configure Visual Studio. This is the code. Be careful to make sure the quotes are correct, and that is a 0 returning back to the calling program. That's the code I'm going to use. So first things first, just to see what's already in my environment, the workspace that I've set up for my code within Eclipse. It's empty currently, so when you go into Eclipse, first thing you want to do is set up a new project. I'm choosing a new C project because I've already configured Eclipse for C as well as C++. Call it Hello World, and just a note that I've set the default location to be where my terminal is currently pointing at. So that has created just a directory. So I'm going to add the C file, call that hello.c, but before I press finish, I'm going to show you what is now in existence. Just the directory. If you were to go into that directory, it'll be empty at the moment, but as soon as I press next or finish on Eclipse, it will create that C file where I can start typing my code. So if you ls, you'll now see that file has just been created, and there's some basic ls commands and the date command, which are very helpful. I'm going to type that code that I showed you earlier. Hash include, don't forget any of the syntax. Standard input-output header file which points to all the functionality for printing to standard output, standard error, and receiving data from standard input, which is by default the keyboard. I'm using the printf, print formatted command with \n to give me new lines, and don't forget to put the string in quotes and use a semicolon at the end. And that's going to return, I'm not actually returning anything, which is not ideal, but you would return 0. As you can see, the code is there, and you can see that's the one that's been created by Eclipse. So next you would want to compile and link it. You can do that via the IDE or the terminal window using GCC, and to run it use // or the IDE. So I'm going to build it, and you can see the messages in the console window below, and you can see what commands have been carried out as well, and that's running it. So you'll see now that there will be a debug directory which contains all of the files created during the compile and link process. Again, just checking the date to make sure they all match up, which I knew they would anyway, but just to show you, run that and you'll see it's the file, the executable file. So I've gone back a directory. I'm now going to edit hello.c outside of Eclipse, and just to show what happens in Eclipse when you change files from outside. So I've changed that. I'm using gedit, which is a very simple text editor. You can run it from the terminal or you can navigate to it. So there it is. More will display the contents of that file on the screen. ls to see what files exist. If you run Hello World, it's still the old one, of course, because I haven't rebuilt it. So when you build in here, so when you go back to this, it will tell you there was a change, ask you if you want to reload it, and then when you build it in here, it will build it with the changes. So when you go back to the terminal, you'll see that the new Hello World has now changed. You can see that with the date as well, and when you run this you will see the new version of it. Printf is the command that has been used to print to the standard output, which is by default the screen. It can be redirected to a file if you wish, and you need this stdio library. So thank you for watching, and I wish you well with your experimentation.